Don't give me that. You've been spooching with everybody. Snuffy, Al, Leo, little Mo with the gimpy leg, Cheeks, Bony Bob, Cliff.
It's a lie.
I could go on forever, baby.
Hello, welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave, and I'm one of the two hosts of this flawed podcast.
And I'm Rich, and I'm the other host of this flawed podcast. Why is it flawed, Dave? It's great. Think of me as Lilo to Dave's Stitch. I'm a small Hawaiian girl, and he's a little blue monster that eats everything.
That's partially true. I do eat a lot. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, their worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And, of course, we often drift off and talk about other things. Sometimes movies, sometimes life in general. But it's always fun.
And sometimes we do like to drop big fat spoilers, and that is totally by accident. So if we mention a film you haven't seen, it's not our problem, it's your problem. So go check your eggs. They're in the fridge. Put them in the water, see if they float or don't float. One of them's means they're off. Because on today's episode, we are joined by Phil De Semlyen.
Phil is a brilliant film journalist. You might know him from his time at Empire, but he's now the global film editor of Time Out magazine, where he's been for a few years now.
We're very excited to sit down with Phil and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Phil De Semlyen's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy.
I have got a question for you to warm up our brains a little bit, to get us into it. And that question is, what is the first sequel you remember seeing?
The first sequel I remember seeing.
Or getting excited about when you were younger?
Oh, man, I think I'm going to say Die Hard 2. I'm sure it wasn't the first sequel I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I do remember seeing it at the cinema and being very excited about it. And it still gives me an excited tinkle whenever there's a chance to watch it. I don't even know. It's one of those films I'm not even sure how good it is, to be honest. It certainly doesn't quite shape up compared to the original. We used to fly, because my mum's American, we used to fly to Washington every summer to see her family.
Right.
Through Dulles Airport, which is obviously where it's set.
Cool.
Never with Windsor Airlines, thankfully. I always have had a memory of, always thought about Die Hard in that film. It's quite an unusual shape building, and big fan of that. Big fan of that film. Big fan of the twist with the Special Forces guys and the whole. Where had they been serving together? It was in Grenada or something. Some random place.
Sort of like that.
I thought that was very cool with the different tape that they had on their blanks and whatnot, and the icicle, and I enjoyed that. I enjoy the memory of that film a lot and seeing it at the cinema.
Did you ever look out for people passing presents under a table to each other while you're sat in the airport?
Inevitably. I think we got in a lot of trouble with grumpy parking people as well outside. My grandfather would give as good as he got on that front, but that was a good holiday memory, movie holiday memory.
Did you I've got a few questions about Die Hard 2 now.
Yeah.
Do you think it's underrated as a film?
As I say, it's difficult. I just feel a bit close to it because it's got a bit of a nostalgic memory for me. I think people tend to think that Die Hard with a Vengeance, and then Die Hard 2, probably a distant second. It's probably the Temple of Doom of the Gods, I would say, in terms of the esteem in which it's held. But I think it's great. Yeah, it does the job really well. It makes it. I'm trying to think, because we'll go on to talk about another film that feels like it's sort of aping the original.
Yeah.
And it definitely does establish the formula, doesn't it? It kind of reestablishes the formula, but it works.
Oh yeah.
Sort of the whole transit thing, and it uses the airport locations really, really well. I remember the Travelator bit with the guys doing the DIY. That scene, the ambush scene, was great. Going back where the luggage was, I learned a lot about airports from the movie. I don't know if that's a massive plus, but every time now I'm like, oh yeah, so that's how the luggage conveyor belt works when you leave your luggage. I don't know, nerdy stuff about airports.
Two films are like that for me. Is it Toy Story 2 and Die Hard 2? Both have behind the window, like behind the magic for what it's like in an airport.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Similarities.
Right. Yeah, I haven't thought about the Toy Story airport bit, but you're absolutely right. And the ending is kind of an all-timer, I think.
Yeah.
When all the bad guys are like, yeah, we're going to head off into the sunset. And he just drops his, I don't know, is it a Zippo? He just drops, and just the trail of ignited fuel up to the plane. It's just so great.
And then
it's really
the
great.
famous line. I think he gets to say the whole line in that one again, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He
Yippee-ki-yay.
does. So it does tick a lot of the boxes, but in a kind of a refreshing way.
Yeah. Were you looking forward to it so much because of Die Hard? Had you watched it at that point, the first one?
Do you know what? I think I had, but I don't think it had really sunk in the way that it has since then.
Yeah.
I think just the word that built around Die Hard and about Bruce Willis as well as an action hero at that time. Making those sorts of movies. He kind of like, they kind of had a geopolitical feel to them, which I really like. Still, they felt that they were engaged in the wider world. So you had this kind of, Latin American despot, and he's just sort of messed with the wrong grumpy New York beat detective or whatever. And I just like the kind of the scale that they kind of gestured towards. But no, I think I've really fallen in love with Die Hard subsequent to that, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, sat down and did that corny Christmas watch a couple of years ago, and just blown away by how sort of precise and brilliant it is.
I do Die Hard 1 and 2, I think, every Christmas. Just because,
really? Yeah.
Well, my missus makes me watch rubbish Christmas films, like the Hallmark ones. When there's a prince or whatever getting married, or there's a baby, or there's a switch or something like that.
You know what happens? A small town girl comes back home for some reason, falls in love with her ex-boyfriend, and if you play it in reverse, it's a big feminist revolution where a small town girl leaves her rubbish boyfriend and goes to the city and becomes a lawyer. Like
that's a better film.
At Christmas.
I get to watch those two. How do you feel about the other Die Hards? You mentioned Die Hard with a Vengeance there. What about 4 and 5?
Yeah, I don't have any feelings about I couldn't tell you very much. I've seen them. They kind of went one in and out the other. But Die Hard with a Vengeance, I love. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It just really holds up. It's a great movie. Great villain. Great time with the whole Gruber family. Kind of waiting for the next movie where Gruber's mum turns up, just looking for vengeance. But yeah, just exceptional. Keeps you guessing. Everything feels unexpected. The chemistry between Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis is phenomenal. I think the opening is incredibly daring even now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you do that now, for instance, that whole kind of setup. But yeah, fantastic. Really, and I always feel like McClane's being stretched all the time. He's not settling into his comfort zone. And, with a long running franchise like that, like a Bond, you can often feel like, he's going to make it through this. But because it's got an intellectual element to it, as well as a kind of action one, you can feel him being really stretched. So he needs the Samuel L. Jackson sidekick to help him through stuff. And I think that's really clever as well.
And that's why I think 4 and 5 are a bit forgettable, is because he's somehow a bit more of a superhero in those movies. Like, he's somehow become kind of like super cop, and he never was that. He was just an ordinary bloke who got stuck in this thing and didn't give up. Whereas, 4 and 5, he's kind of like some sort of superhero, and I think that makes them worse.
He's kind of the antithesis of what he is as a character, isn't he? He's like kind of Rocky with a sidearm. Everything in his life is a bit of a mess. His marriage is a mess. He can't hold down a relationship. But, this is his one thing he's really good at.
Yeah.
But he's still kind of straining for it in a kind of blue collar, hardworking guy kind of way. And I think that's what's great about the character. So, as soon as you get to a point where you think the jeopardy isn't there and he doesn't feel as fully formed as a character, and it's probably when the franchise loses its mustard, should we say?
Yeah, definitely.
In your head, is Die Hard, is it a trilogy more than a 5-piece?
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing, Phil.
It's such a cheesy. I don't know. You guys must talk about this a lot on the podcast. I mean, the same argument with Indiana Jones, I guess, isn't it? We obviously, I was used to be at Empire, and we joke about how there's only 3. This was before they released the last one.
Yes.
So I don't know what the conversation is there now around it. But yeah, there's only 3 Indiana Jones films, and I think there's really only 3 Die Hard films, to be honest.
Yeah,
you're not gonna miss much if you don't watch the additional ones at the end of Vengeance.
Well, especially that 5th one is.
You disagree?
Toilet. I think the 4th one is a lot of fun. I think that has scenes in it. I think there's a lift scene that I think is really good when he's fighting Maggie Q, and Timothy Olyphant I think is a great bad guy as well. But then it goes a little bit too far at the end when they get the like that, and then
but
5,
also you
5
wouldn't
toilet.
miss anything. Like, if you didn't have 4, 4's okay, I think, and it's better than I thought it was. when we re-watched it not long ago, and it is better than I thought it was, but I still don't think you need it. I would also say I think Star Wars is a trilogy and there are no other movies, but I might get shot for that.
That you will, yeah. You'll definitely get Sarlacc pitted for that one. I think that's a bit more. That feels a lot more controversial than saying that Die Hard is a trilogy. Although I may be doing Die Hard for a disservice. As I said, I don't know it that well. It hasn't really drawn me in the way that the first three did. Should we say?
Is that because the way they're made? Do you reckon, or I don't know how to put it across. Like, they seem so shiny and new now, but back like the original three Die Hards and the Indiana Jones ones, you could see the kind of the magic behind them and how they made them. And there's, I would say, love and care into them. And then 4 is shiny and new and 5's awful. And it kind of goes to Indiana Jones. The last one's okay. 4 is awful. And do you think just films were different back then? Or is that a nostalgia thing that we've all got a hold of?
I think it's probably a bit of a nostalgia thing, to be honest. I don't know. I think, there's some ropey effect shots in Die Hard 2. Thinking of the ejector seat.
Yes.
None of me believes this, but you let it go. It didn't feel like dependent on its effects at all, like probably the 5th one does.
Yes.
I would say. And yeah, you're right. I think maybe I have a real problem with some of the kind of like visual effects, kind of backdrops, compositing and stuff in action movies these days, because they just feel, like you said, they feel very distracting and artificial. And the first Die Hard film didn't feel like that at all, really. I don't know exactly how they made some of the effect shots, like the armored car bit, for instance, whether they used models or what they did there. But I never at any point watching that film do you go, well, that looks completely rubbish and fake. It's a bloke with no shoes on walking around a building.
Yeah.
And that does all the work for you. It's not maybe because Bruce Willis was at the peak of his powers back then, and then he got a bit older and he couldn't do as much of the kind of actiony heavy lifting. Maybe they started to lean more on big set pieces. Or maybe they thought that's what audience want. That's what the audience wants. The audience wants, there is sometimes you watch Hollywood studio movies and you think that they've got to give you X number of action set pieces. There's got to be a car chase now. There's got to be and so maybe those last Die Hard films kind of came at the beginning of an era where things started to feel a bit more formulaic. In that regard.
Like the bit when Hans Gruber's dropped off the roof in that first film, it looks so good. I think they actually dropped Alan Rickman off a building a little bit.
They did. He was on we actually managed to, very fortunate to interview him.
Cool.
And we asked him about that. He said that it was in the studio and they were going to count to sort of 3 and then let go of him. And I think they just went 1 and dropped him. So that kind of look on his face was him like genuine surprise. I don't know, like 20 feet onto a crash mat or something. But I think, you get a sense of like, it feels real.
I'm glad they got that, because you only get that once, right? He's not going to fall for that again.
He's on the phone to his agent if they try it a second time. No, I'm sure he wouldn't be. I'm sure he would have gone as many times as they wanted, because he was a legend.
He was a legend.
Yeah.
So what sort of age were you when you saw Die Hard 2? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
What year did it come out? Can work backwards.
I can find out.
I want to say 88. Is that too early? Too late?
I would have been like my teens. Kind of maybe early teens, mid-teens.
Came out in 1990.
Did it?
Oh, okay. Right.
It's later than I thought. Die Hard was 88.
Yeah, mid-teens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mid-teens. The other one I remember around that time seeing at the cinema was Predator 2, which I stand by.
It's mad.
I haven't seen it very much since then. But
it's wild.
That one.
Yeah, it's definitely wild.
Yeah.
But again, I think one that I think was better than I remembered when I watched it back. Like, it's still stupid, but it's better.
Yeah.
And if I was mid-teens watching it, I would probably have loved it.
Yeah. I do remember having a good time with that one. Enjoyed Danny Glover. It felt so, no disrespect to Danny Glover, who's obviously a legend, but it did feel sort of so short on star power compared to the first one.
Yeah.
That it kind of just felt a little low key, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. I really loved Prey. What was that, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Now. So good.
Can't wait for
Love
the
that
next one.
film. So, yeah.
Yeah.
No, me too.
Big fan of that too. Yeah. Actually quite looking forward to this Alien Romulus, the one that's coming soon. That looks pretty good.
At the end of the month now, isn't it? August?
Yeah.
It's in August, mid to late August. Very excited about that.
Yeah.
I think it's premiering at the Edinburgh Film Festival,
Oh.
and it looks great, really great. And I think choosing Fede Alvarez, the Evil Dead reboot director, probably a smart move, because I think the original Alien is obviously kind of a haunted house movie. It's a horror film.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need a lot of like mythology. It doesn't need a lot of the kind of layers of myth arc that they've subsequently added to it. So this one looks like it's stripping it back and getting just to the basics,
And
which
I mean,
I think will be really great.
I'm still having nightmares about cheese graters thanks to that guy. So if you can,
That's
if
a
you can
different
do that
director.
in-
Different director.
Oh, was it? I thought it was the Evil Dead's.
No, he directed the other remake of The Evil Dead.
Oh, okay. I thought it was this Evil
No,
Dead.
Lee Cronin
Sorry.
did this one.
Oh, okay.
Understandable confusion. I
Yeah,
should
they're
say.
both fucking
Sorry.
That's fair.
What is your best sequel ever?
My best sequel ever, I've gone with The Last Crusade.
Brilliant.
That's a good choice. That's a really good choice.
I don't know if anyone's ever picked The Last Crusade on the pod before.
One, and it was Helen
One,
O'Hara
yeah.
on our first.
No, Helen did.
Yeah, on our first
Oh,
ever episode.
okay.
So
Oh, well, everyone should probably go back and listen to what she had to say. 'Cause I'm sure she had more blinding insights than me. But I love. I was having another look at it last night. I just think it's perfection. The first film, The Raiders, is one of my absolute all-time favorite. In fact, it's in my it was on my Sight and Sound top 10 list. It's in my top 3 I think, of all-time films. It's just an absolutely perfect movie. I don't think The Last Crusade is that far behind in terms of perfection and storytelling and wit and visual, sort of Spielberg visual flair, the characterization, bringing something new to the story. The first one was obviously kind of a love story of sorts, and this one is a kind of father-son tale. It's so well cast, so many great performances from great actors in every single role. I think these films are just, every single character in it, no matter how small, just feels perfectly cast. It's funny because it does a lot of things that it's a weird franchise in a way, because you go from like Raiders of the Lost Ark and then it goes back to like creates a prequel with the Temple of Doom, which isn't really referred to in the first. Like, nothing that happens in the Temple of Doom is obviously referred to in Raiders of the Lost Ark, so it's quite weird that it's kind of doesn't have any. It's kind of retconned itself before it's even started, and then The Last Crusade almost feels like a more of what you would call a kind of a reboot of the franchise now, where it's going back and establishing the origin story and stuff. But it does it so well. A lot of the things that happen in the first 20 minutes of Last Crusade with the River Phoenix, getting the whip, getting the hat, getting the fear of snakes, all of that stuff is so well done. So many films try that stuff and it just feels really like, including probably more recent Indiana Jones films, it just feels so really like, oh god, you're going to do that, are you?
Yeah.
We don't need to know that. Like, don't give us all that. We don't need to know that stuff. But in this case, because it's done with such cheek and such panache, you love it, and it just adds to the character. And then it does that brilliant cut from him getting the fedora from the other kind of I don't know what you call him, grave robbing
Bastard.
bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Bastard. He's got an amazing name, that character. I wish I could remember what it was off the top of my head. I'm going to Google it whilst we talk and come back to it. And then it cuts to obviously Harrison Ford being up. Yeah, being Harrison Ford and being Indiana Jones. It's a brilliant kind of match cut from Spielberg. Yeah, which is so good.
I'm just going to say, I watched this with my son. We rewatched it for this episode, and he really enjoyed it, but he got really, really scared about the guy turning into a skeleton at the end. He was not happy about that. But the bit that made me laugh the most was when Sean Connery says she talks in her sleep. He was like, "What? What does that mean? What are they talking about?" I'm like, I don't know, mate.
Yeah. Mum, can you come and explain this bit, please? You don't expect it to be one of those movies that where you have awkward conversations with your kids. How old's your son?
He's 9.
Right.
He has autism, so he sees movies quite differently to lots of people. So we watched 4 Crystal Skull, and his take at the end was, it doesn't really work when they try and put animated cartoons in movies, because it's like it all looks so animated with the CGI. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't really work, and it isn't scary. Like, the aliens weren't scary, so yeah, he wasn't impressed.
It's not wrong.
He's got great insights. Yeah. Sounds like a film critic in the making for sure.
He's getting there.
Yeah.
Were you a little bit obsessed with Indiana Jones when you were younger? What age did you start? And did you watch them in the correct order?
Yeah, I think so. I remember I got given Raiders of the Lost Ark for my birthday on VHS.
Yes.
I think my dad had some contact in there because this was when videos were purely wholesale, so you didn't really buy them, and there was video shops, and they were solely sold to video shops, so they would be like £80 for a video. And I think my dad had some contact with someone and got a copy of it, and I had all my mates around and we watched it. I, like your son, I had some issues with the melty face at the end at that age, which I probably still do, to be honest, because it is like a bit of 80s body horror just in the middle of this kind of action adventure.
All Indiana Jones love a bit of body horror, don't they? It always kind of crops up, like they all do. Like, yeah,
they do, but because the tone of Raiders is a bit more serious, perhaps, than Last Crusade, it lands a bit harder, perhaps. But yeah, so we had all my mates around and watched it. So that was my first ever probably at home viewing that I can remember. And then, I think Temple of Doom at the cinema and Last Crusade at the cinema. So yeah, I watched them in order.
Oh, I'm very jealous. I'm pretty sure I saw Last Crusade before I watched the others. And partially why I think it's my favourite Indiana Jones now.
Right.
I love it. Do you remember what age you were when you saw it?
Last Crusade? You know what? I don't think I can. I guess when it came out, I would have been... so it came out in 89. I would have been 16.
Oh, wow.
16, so teenager. That kind of era. It was a great era.
Did you want to become Indiana Jones at the age of 16?
I still do, to be honest. Yeah. I think it's probably a bit late now. Although, he's kind of a middle-aged guy.
It's never too late.
I think I've definitely probably had a bit of that. Yeah. Yeah. He was very cool, but he did feel very much older when you were a kid. He did feel like a proper, weathered grown up, which is what's cool about him, and also potentially what's problematic about the scene where all of the girls at college just losing their minds for him outside the classroom.
Yeah.
To be fair, he does run away though.
He does. He plays it all. He plays it brilliantly. It's that kind of it's that kind of personality split between him and his buttoned up professor persona and him as Indiana Jones is really nicely kind of established and played. And his dad is obviously just more of the professor and doesn't have the other side of that particular personality, which is great. I also enjoy the fact that the scene where he goes to the Austrian Schloss and pretends to be Scottish. Yeah. And, obviously does, I don't know, it's obviously a deliberately terrible Scottish accent, but, his dad's Scottish. So it's like, you'd think he'd be better at it than that, to be honest. Yeah, it's that whole sequence. I mean, it's hard to pick a favourite bit. It just all sort of fits together so seamlessly.
Oh, my favourite bit is where he throws the Nazi out the window and goes, "No ticket." That's always my favourite bit. They're all scrambling to give his ticket.
There's so much wit. It's just the economy of the wit, how it all, the script and the staging and the blocking and everything and the characters all fit together so seamlessly. So you almost can't pick one particular reason why it's so great. The library stamp.
Yeah.
When he's looking at the stamp. And, Indiana Jones is taking the brass what's-it to the floor. It's so good. It's so clever.
That's a little bit of Spielberg magic, isn't it? Those little touches.
It is, although I don't know. I haven't read the script. Maybe it's in the script. I'm not sure. Yeah. But it's certainly something that he does in so many of his movies that it's not, that it is very much a Spielberg grace note. So, yeah. Just the whole, the whole way that the scenes are kind of constructed. So clever.
When you first watched it, did you have any idea who Sean Connery was that playing Indiana Jones's dad, and how perfect of casting James Bond as the dad is?
I don't think I saw it I don't think I saw it was a kind of the idea that they were playing him against type quite so much. Yeah. Because I hadn't seen all of his films. And he also had that kind of wise, by that point, the films I knew him from, like Highlander, he'd had that kind of wise Al persona to him, and then the Untouchables and things like that. They were starting to cast him in those kind of sage older roles. But yeah, now you watch it and you're like, wow, he's like the coolest actor in the world. He's kind of goofy, boyish, absent-minded professor, and that's a genius bit of casting. You really believe the two of them. You can really feel the two characters. I don't know. Did you feel that the Connery kind of playing against himself a little bit?
I remember my dad being very excited to tell me that was Sean Connery, and that was a big deal when I was younger. Like, that's James Bond. That's James Bond. I was like, great at that point, because I don't think I'd seen many of them since time's gone by. Then definitely, yeah.
I mean, I grew up with Roger in the Roger Moore era of Bond, sort of the late Roger Moore era. So I didn't really know. I'd seen the Sean Connery Bonds, but I didn't associate him by that point with Bond 100%. He was doing other stuff, I guess, by that stage.
Yeah, I don't think Sean Connery was my Bond. If that makes sense. I think I would say he was more Indiana Jones's dad to me. That was my first introduction to Sean Connery, I would say. That's what it'd always be. I just looked it up, by the way, and Richard Young's character in the cast is called Fedora. Just in case you like that's his actual character name.
Oh yeah,
it's just called Fedora.
Fedora. That's great.
That's a bit weird. Do you think Last Crusade has the best beginning of any film ever, or is it up there with the River Phoenix scene? Big question. Sorry.
Oh, well, I mean, it's hard to beat the beginning of Raiders, really. I would probably put the beginning of Raiders ahead of the Last Crusade.
Okay.
They're doing very different things. They're doing very different things. I think maybe the way that the Last Crusade stitches the backstory with the sort of story is so clever, and never slackens off, and it does all this work. I love the fact that it's River Phoenix. We didn't get to see a lot of River Phoenix, obviously. I think this is a really nice way to introduce people to his work, because he did some great work in his short career. I watched Sidney Lumet sort of draft, I don't know if you call it draft dodgers, but Vietnam era drama Running on Empty recently, which he's fantastic in. I think he was Oscar nominated for. He's great. And I think the plan was for him to go on potentially and be the young Indy in the movies, in the kind of mutt type role. And yeah, I think there's a bit of a drop off. I mean, Shia LaBeouf's an incredible actor, but in terms of like capturing the spirit of the character, I think it's right there in that, in River Phoenix's performance. He's got everything, the daring, the ingenuity, the chutzpah. It's all there.
I don't know if I made this up, but was there a Young Indiana Jones TV show?
There was, yeah.
Have I invented that, or did that actually happen?
I mean, if you'd invented it, you'd be laughing, because it's a genius idea. But they have done it already.
Okay.
I couldn't talk about it for very long, but I do love that show, Young Indy. It was George Lucas was behind it, and a lot of great filmmakers did episodes. The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Yeah,
I might have to look that up. Yeah, might have to look that.
It wasn't a fever dream. Phil, have you got children?
I do. I have one. I have a daughter.
How old?
She's 7.
Oh, I'm about to say, have you showed her Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade yet?
No, I haven't yet. No, it's a good question. I'm keen to show her the films in order.
Oh yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah.
And when you say order, are you gonna all of them?
No. 100% no. No. Definitely no. But I will show her the first 3.
Yeah.
Her uncle, my brother Nick is a film guy as well. The editor of Empire, and he's a very big Temple of Doom fan, and he's friends with Key Short Round in real life.
Wow.
So maybe she'll get to meet Short Round in real life.
Wow.
And then we can watch the Goonies and everything as well. She's a big film buff, my kid. But I think she's not quite ready for. I'm just mindful of how I felt about watching the end of Raiders when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't even a kid. I was about 11. So, and maybe she's a bit young for it, but I don't know. She's pretty tough, to be honest.
We've had that conversation, like some of the stuff we watched when we probably shouldn't have watched it. And now Rich is a dad, and he's like, I'd never let my son watch that. The age I did.
I mean, I watched Raiders when I was 5. Like, I was 5 years old when I watched Raiders. And I think probably 6 or 7 when I watched Temple of Doom. And yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't let my son watch Temple of Doom. I don't think. I think it's too much.
No, it's a really bad vibe as well. It's just not. It's not a happy family viewing. But 5, my gosh, that is young. Yeah, I don't think my dad wasn't that discerning about what he'd pick up from the video shop for me. And yeah, so it does. Yeah, as a parent, you do think about it these days.
Are you itching to show her certain films?
I mean, those would be some of them.
Yeah.
Definitely. Raiders for sure, and Last Crusade. It'd be lovely if we could sit down and watch. We'd almost watch Last Crusade before we watch Raiders potentially, but as I say, you've got to stick to the chronology, right? Yeah, all of them. I mean, I'm excited to introduce her to Japanese samurai cinema, or like the French New Wave, or the Leopard or something. I don't think she's gonna be there for it necessarily.
Do you think she'll make it through like 4.5 hours of Seven Samurai?
No, I think not. No, she might make it through the first 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm not sure. I could tell her that it's a remake of Bug's Life, and she might go for
Which
it.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is it so old though, Daddy? Well, I don't know. They just did it in a retro style. I don't think she's going to be watching those films with me anytime soon. But I would let her just kind of go off and choose her own path in terms of what movie she's into.
Yeah.
On the proviso that if there are any ones that I deem to be crap, I'll stop her watching them immediately, obviously. But no, I think you've got to develop your own taste, haven't you? But
yeah.
But once if she comes and tells you that Indiana Jones 4 is her favourite,
Dave.
She's going to be looking for it. You want me to say she'll be looking for a new home?
No, not a 7. That'd be mad.
No, she will be looking for a new home. We saw that actually. That was a family movie outing to the cinema in Watford with my mum and my brother. We were so excited, and I could just feel my soul draining out of my shoes in the middle of that movie. I was like, "Will you not do any more of this? It's so bad." But yeah, that's not a favorite. It does feel like punching down to slag off the Crystal Skull these days.
Yeah, it does.
So I might turn my attention to the last one.
Let's talk about either. What was were you excited when they announced they were going to go back to a 5th one? Because you've always got hope, and the hope that kills you a little bit.
I wasn't. No, to be honest with you, I think I come at it from a slightly different perspective these days because now I do it like as a profession.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit more I try not to be cynical, but a little bit more like, why are you doing this? Is there really an idea? It felt like it was sort of on the wave of Hollywood just scrambling around for like IP to revive rather than, having this. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe it was an idea that's been kicking around in George Lucas's drawers for years and years. But I don't know.
You might say it is, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, I doubt it. I don't know. I think, making him the age of like the Sean Connery, he's obviously older in real life, but making him that kind of like generation of the Sean Connery character in Last Crusade, and yet having all of this baggage, this emotional baggage, just sort of felt like it was weighing the thing down a bit. I didn't feel like that's really what it is, Indiana Jones. Didn't really go for the time travel MacGuffin particularly. I thought that the Indiana Jones trilogy kind of like mines a particular form of sort of the supernatural and religiosity, but it wasn't really like a sci-fi concept in quite the same way as they've recently introduced, the UFOs and the time travel and all that. I just didn't like it, and the visual aspect was, I just thought, quite rubbish. And they filmed New York and Glasgow, and you can kind of pull that it's
they did that a lot, don't they?
New York. Yeah, I don't know, but in Last Crusade there's the short scene where he goes to the party and with what's his name, Walter Donovan's house, and that's obviously set in New York and shot in a studio. But I felt that they were in New York. I don't know why, but it's just like I believe everything this film is telling me. Whereas I didn't. The last two just have rung a bit false for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys feel the same way or differently.
I quite like 5. I had a good time. I can see where it's flawed. I don't think it's not a it's not a movie I'm going to come out and defend because I completely agree with everything you said. But also, I walked out of it going with an actually like a happy feeling. I actually felt like I'd watched an Indiana Jones movie, and I think the things it did get right were I didn't mind the de-aging. I know a lot of people hated it. I quite liked the beginning on the train. I thought, I was very into it by then. I also kind of liked the fact that just like every other Indiana Jones movie, if Indy does nothing, the same thing happens. So the result is not dependent on anything Indy does. Like the bad guys are their own downfall. Like, none of it actually matters. And I kind of like that too. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's better than 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And we had to watch a few other rubbish sequels around that time, and that was one of the better ones, to be honest. We had a bad run.
Yeah, it was definitely better than 4.
Yeah. Last question on Crusade. What is your favourite bit of that film?
My favourite bit of the film has always been the joke where they're being kind of interrogated in the Schloss, and they know that Marcus Brody has got the map.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is like, forget it, you're never going to find him. He'll blend in. He speaks a dozen languages. He's gone. And then it cuts to him and he's just wandering around, talking about like, just very conspicuously walking through Alexandretta or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just blatantly obvious that he has not the faintest idea what he's doing. The editing and I've seen that joke in I feel like I've seen that joke in a lot of films, but it's so flawlessly played. None of that scene makes any sense. Like I don't know how they would know that he's there, because he meets Salas and he, fights the Gestapo guys that turn up. They've already found him. And then he wanders off and gets into the back of, why is the lorry there? Gets into the back of that lorry that's disguised as a house, as a door. It doesn't make any sense. But you just don't care. Like, it's funny when a film is that good. You just leave everything behind. You're not sitting there going, well, that doesn't make sense. That's a plot. You don't think about it. I think that's what the great filmmakers do, really. Just sort of invite you onto and you just put your feet up and enjoy the ride, and your brain doesn't get into that stuff.
That's just, to me, it just felt like Spielberg's kind of like love of silent movie era stuff. Him getting in the back of that truck, that felt exactly like that kind of like, joke.
Like a Buster Keaton-y bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I think silent movies are the kind of they're the sort of silent inspiration for a lot of the movies that we love these days. Over the last 20 or 30 years, I think they're huge. People don't talk about them enough in terms of that kind of the visual wit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you had to do when you couldn't use sound in the same way to make jokes land and to advance the story. I think the best filmmakers use those silent techniques still a lot. Yeah.
What has been your most disappointing sequel? So it's not your worst sequel. It doesn't have to be a bad sequel. But what film have you gone in and then came out? Example, Indiana Jones 4 has come up quite a lot here. Or Star Wars films, certain Marvel films.
I think I know it's not a particularly deep cut, and I know also a lot of people have sort of there's been a lot of kind of reevaluation, but I think Phantom Menace for me was really, really disappointing because of the amount of hype there was, the amount of excitement around that one.
Yeah,
kind of pre-internet, sitting down to the the fanfare and the opening crawl, then reading the opening crawl and thinking, I haven't got a degree in economics. Am I going to understand this movie? Because they're just rambling on about, it was like a sort of manifesto for like post-Brexit trading policies. I'm just like, what's happened to, Death Stars and, cool sort of mystical knights? It was just, so that was a crushing disappointment for me because I did grow up with Star Wars, not the first one, but, or the toy, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So not to sound all like Simon Peggy, but I was just really the kind of the feeling of your heart sinking when Jar Jar sort of comes on and just the look of it, just the fact that it didn't feel like it belonged to the same universe as the first 3 films. That kind of VFX-y sheen that it has. Tremendously disappointed with that one. And there's been, Bond films, you kind of take the rough with the smooth with Bond, but there's been a few in that bracket as well.
Yeah.
I think Phantom Menace is like a great shout for that. Like, I think disappointing is the most, is the feeling that comes to mind when I think about it. Because actually looking back, there are good bits in it. It's certainly better than Attack of the Clones. But again, I think the hype was so big and just the feeling, I got about 40 minutes in, I think, and I was like, oh no, this is bad. I'm like sitting there going, I'm watching a bad Star Wars movie. I've been waiting for years for this. Like, what's happening? So I think that's a really good answer.
You were watching Star Wars movie, but I would say, in fairness to it, it is a more ambitious film than Force Awakens. Like, at least it's trying to do something different with the whole world of Star Wars and the franchise, and slot the storytelling back together. And it was trying something, at least. I think The Force Awakens was just repeating A New Hope. Personally,
I did come out of Force Awakens like quite high though. I came out again. I've watched the Star Wars movie and I didn't hate it.
Yeah. It's a fun movie. It's just the same movie. I think.
You're right. Absolutely, you're right. And I think you're talking about what movies you might disown your daughter for liking. My son very seriously told me that Attack of the Clones was his favourite Star Wars movie, and it was that point that I realised I'd failed as a father.
You haven't. Young people love them. Maybe we failed as grown-ups.
Maybe.
There is a whole generation that Phantom Menace is their Star Wars film, which is a bit totally strange. Are you one of these people that's gone back to it and reevaluated it? It's now okay. Nope. Cool.
No. Life is too short. Sorry. I'm not going to reevaluate Phantom Menace.
Did you buy into the hype when it was coming out though? Because it was literally everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, because it felt like a novelty that they were, as I say, we're in a more of an IP-led sort of acquisitions and mergers and Disney owning everything and, rebooting everything. But back then it didn't feel like that in quite the same way. It felt like it was exciting and new and, why not, do a prequel to this incredible films that we've grown up with. So we were, ready to go on that one.
Did you have all the toys then and everything? The original toys?
Yes, I had a lot of them. My friend, my oldest friend in the world, a guy called Rich, he had more. He had like a Death Star.
There's always one kid that has everything.
Or Kenner.
Yeah.
He was the kid that had all of the cool stuff. So I go around his house and stuff. But yeah, the action figures. I had an Imperial Walker. Is that what they're called?
The four-legged ones.
Just fell over all the time. Like, I don't know how no wonder the Ewoks had such an easy job knocking them over. Absolutely the most kind of teetering, drunken piece of toy equipment I'd ever seen. But loved
really
it.
Floppy,
Legs just
didn't they?
really floppy, really wobbly. But yeah, the excitement of the toy range. I was just in the grip of the Lucasfilm industrial complex as a kid, as I don't, most people probably were.
Yeah, I remember the excitement of watching that Phantom Menace trailer for the first time. And the only few people had internet, so you had to wait for it to load for about an hour until you could actually watch it. And it was always watch bit, and then it stopped, and then we'd go back and start again, and then go for a little bit longer. And you would see like certain bits like droids. You're like, okay, we've got droids. That's cool.
Yeah.
And that first trailer is quite good, but the film.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think Jar Jar's one of the few movie characters who's probably better when he's back, to be honest. Just as little as Jar Jar, as slowly as possible.
Yeah.
And those were the days of interesting how kind of marketed movies in the very early, like you said, spend an hour waiting for the trailer to download. That's commitment, dedication.
Spoilers were a lot easier to avoid back in 1999. I know you've just seen Deadpool and Wolverine. And are you worried how easy it is to get hold of stuff now? Like spoiler-wise, and how easy studios seem to be putting it out there?
Yeah, I don't tend to engage with trailers that much. But yeah, some do seem to give away an awful lot these days. And I don't know why. I think filmmakers probably spend a lot of time arguing with studios about, how much is enough to put in a trailer to whet the appetite without giving it away. That's always probably an argument that happens behind the scenes. With something like Deadpool and Wolverine, I think, when you're reviewing, you have to be really scrupulous about not giving anything away. I did read a review from another outlet that will remain nameless, which gave away some really massive plot points and cameos. Yeah, but quite, but maybe not writing for sort of a geeky audience or an audience that's engaged on that level. But still, you're like, that stuff doesn't happen until really late. I got in trouble on social. I reviewed Deadpool 2 and I revealed that Deadpool's girlfriend dies in the opening kind of reel. Right. And that was a bit of a learning for me because I was like, okay, I figured that because it happens really, really, really early in the film, that it's okay to use that and it sets up the story, that I kind of felt like I needed to tell people that that's what the story is. But then somebody pointed out that actually you kind of ruin something that's quite big. So I err on the side of not giving stuff away and not writing too much about the plot because I don't think that's what people really need from a review anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there is a lot out there. I think you can close your ears and your eyes to it. if you want to, but it is a bit difficult when people are posting on social media, for sure.
Yes.
And that's why me and Dave will never be proper reviewers. We always say this when we do reviews of sequels, that we're not very good reviewers because we always spoil things by accident. We always get so excited and start talking about stuff.
We say at the beginning this is spoiler though, so we don't.
We always tell people they're spoilers. But yeah, we do kind of That's why we're not proper critics.
Yeah.
We're just not very good at it.
Not so.
Look, there's a lot of critics that do that. I don't think they think about it on quite that level, maybe. But, also maybe, I don't know, it's probably to be on the safe side, read reviews after you've seen the film, maybe.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
I like to do that way. I like to read, see the film and then see what other people took away from it. That's always interesting. Don't really want to read too much before I see it.
No, I'm like you. I try and avoid all avoid all trailers. I don't read reviews. I tend to, now we do the podcast, I tend to not read reviews until after we've recorded the podcast, so that it doesn't give me kind of other people's ideas. That's important too. Yeah. I like Joker 2 trailer broke this week and I haven't watched it. Maybe I should. I don't know.
I have.
Okay. Fair enough.
No,
of course you have, Dave.
Because I'm just, I try and stay away from that shit and I just can't. I think it looks, well, I'm not going into it. What is your worst sequel ever?
My worst sequel ever is Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
This is controversial.
I really hate it. I'm sorry. I know people really like it and they grew up with it, and I'm probably going to get hexed, but I really don't like this film at all.
I can't wait to hear why.
I haven't got anything revolutionary to say about it, to be honest. It's just the sheer aching kind of reduxness of it and the laziness of the story. It's just, I don't know. I also feel like, I think the thing that it's not really so much the fact that it kind of repeats all of the same beats of the first film, which for me is always a crime in a sequel, because it's just, you have to try and do something creative, take it in a different direction or whatever. But it's just the spirit of the film just feels off compared to the first one. There's something in it that just feels, maybe it's the New York as a location feels a bit cold compared to the warm sort of Chicago suburbs of the first movie. And maybe it's just that it doesn't have, it's not as concentratedly festive as the first film for that reason. I think that the violence of the third act is kind of mean-spirited. Like, I know that the Wet Bandits got smashed up in the first film, but I think in this one, they take it just a notch too far, and it's just a bit like bullying almost. But it's probably more about the mood of the thing. I like Tim Curry can't be bad in stuff. Obviously. I want to make that very clear.
He's very much the best thing in the movie.
He's the best thing in the movie, the eye rolling and the like, the gotcha moments and stuff. But I don't like Macaulay Culkin in this film as much. Like, it was the freshness that makes him kind of likable. You're with him. He's younger. He's kind of got this sort of innocence to him. He's a bit of a selfish brat at times, but he's a good kid. And by the end of the first film, he's learned some lessons about family and about himself and about, not sort of judging a book by its cover in his relationship with the old guy. And the second film starts and all of that stuff's gone, and he's like back to what he was in the beginning of the first film. They've just sort of like etch-a-sketched him as a character. He's committing like credit card fraud. I mean, in the Trump hotel, which is probably less of a crime, but he's breaking the law immediately, and he's doing all of this stuff, and he's just kind of back to like this sort of like living sort of prepubescent id. And I don't enjoy hanging out with him at all much in this film compared to the first one. But just repeating all the same beats, the bird lady again, Brenda Fricker, great actress, and the casting's all good apart from Donald Trump's cameo. Not such a big fan of Rob Schneider, but Tim Curry for sure is great. The same villains, the same sort of same ideas, but straining to kind of make it work within the sort of New York setting. It's not a fan at all. And even the movie, the sort of sequel to the film in the first film, Angels with Filthy Souls, is lazy. It's the same thing as the first film. Like, they can't even be bothered to like extend the thinking on that. I'm just like, why would you just watch the first film again? I mean, it's like you can watch the first film forever and it will always be great. I don't want to ever watch Lost in New York again. You know, even the setup is so, because they've done it once and the setup's so contrived. They're like, where is he? Where is he? We can't lose him. We've lost him. It's like,
I agree with
guys,
literally
sad.
everything you've said. And what's fun for me is sitting here watching Dave's heartbreak, because I know it's one of his
Dave.
favourite movies.
Not one of my
So sorry,
favourite
Dave.
movies. I do think it's better than the original, though.
You're wrong.
Okay.
You're really wrong.
But this always happens, Phil. Someone
Yeah.
comes on late in a film that I love, and then I just sit there going, "Yeah, he's right though. That is the same. Yeah, that is bad." And by the end of it, I turn out to be agreeing with you. I just find it really funny still. And like you said, Tim Curry is outstanding in that film. And when I was young, all I wanted to do was go to New York as well and just go to that, you know, hotel and have cookies in the fridge and stuff like that, and go to Duncan's Toy Chest, which apparently is not a real place.
It's not a real place.
Not a real
no.
place.
No. It was the kind of FAO Schwartz of Big, wasn't it?
Yes.
Sort of their equivalent of that. Yeah.
Was it hate as soon as you watched it in 92 or?
No, I didn't see it in 92. I probably, I didn't see it as a kid, so I didn't grow up. That changes your complexion of film straight away. I didn't see it as a kid. I think as a kid, you'd probably be like, yeah, go Kevin. The ice cream sundae, 3 scoops.
Yeah.
I'm not driving, all that kind of stuff. It's an absolute boyhood. It's just boyhood fantasy. So, it's probably not a film that's made for a middle-aged bloke. But I do stand by those criticisms of it as a sequel. I think by their own admission, they were just trying to make the first film again.
They're doing a Force
and they
Awakens
did it.
again, weren't they, before?
And it made tons of money. Yeah, it made an absolute monster. So it was, I think, the third biggest film of that year. So yeah, it's not a film that I did. You've got Home Alone, and I think that does the job. We watch it sort of every Christmas. Got the Lego Home Alone set to build with my kid one day.
Wow, the big house.
Yeah, the big house. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's going to be great. And, I love that film so much. It's really special. And, I suppose it's something about the character. I'd like to see a character. If the character's going to continue, I just want to see the arc continue. I know that Bond doesn't do that because of he's kind of a monolith, but I think normally I want the character to take things into the next movie.
Yeah.
And for the sequel not to feel like a sort of impermeable barrier where everything is forgotten about and moved and sort of left behind. Especially if the film's then going to keep referring back to what happened in the first movie, where they're like, we can't let this happen to Kevin again. And you're like, well, don't worry, Kevin's exactly the same as he was at the beginning of the last film, so he can just go through it all over again. It won't be a problem. Sorry, I'm just ranting.
No, I love it.
No,
That's
I
why
love
I'm
it.
here, I guess.
It's all good rants, though. It's all true. There is no. You'd think that. Well, I mean, as a parent, you'd hold on tight to your kid at all times if you gone through that, losing him in the first place. And I don't know.
I'd handcuff him to me.
Yeah, literally. I was just thinking I would tie a rope around our waists if we're walking anywhere in public. You'd keep hold of him. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think I saw it as a kid, so I think it was fun. But I also agree with you that it's basically just a remake of the first one and not as good, Dave. Not as good.
When Harry gets hit with bricks and he's lying on the floor and he's going, Howie, happiness just surrounds me. I absolutely, I love all the traps. I think they might be better traps. I like, what's that sound and the thing falling down the stairs? And the holes.
Okay, so what does it
the
best?
electrocution.
What does it best?
Is that the first one?
The Home Alone, Lost in New York, or Skyfall,
This is a good point. This is a good call. Yeah.
which is the third Home Alone film. Let's be honest.
It's why Skyfall's my favourite Bond, because
Yes.
it's basically grown-up Home Alone.
Well, I love Skyfall, but I also love Home Alone 2.
I think Home Alone 2 is where it loses it, where Harry and Marv come in, to be honest. I think it's more interesting before they turn up, which is a shame, because they're obviously the best bit of the first movie. Whereas if Tim Curry could have been the bad guy, and it was more Kevin messing with him, I would have enjoyed the movie more.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That's not a bad shout. Having a different bad guy would probably be the easiest way to make the film feel fresher,
Yeah.
and not feel like they're completely redoing the whole of the first film. I don't know, maybe it's something about being British where we're always going to root for the underdogs. I'm not saying I'm rooting for the Wet Bandits, don't get me wrong, but there's a bit of me that's like, they've had enough now, they're rubbish and useless. Stop trying to maim them. But then we wouldn't have all of those sort of articles about, medical professionals being asked how long into the film they would have died.
Instantly.
Yeah, very soon.
First thing.
The bricks would have ploughed their heads in from a great distance.
Yeah. They're not coming back from any of that stuff, are they?
Do I even dare ask about the other Home Alone sequels or franchise?
No, I can't. I haven't seen them. I can't even.
That's the right answer.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Because was it last year or year before they released the Home Sweet Home Alone?
It's terrible.
It's awful. And they linked it back to these two because of Buzz and Kevin McAllister is the owner of the security company, if I remember rightly. You watch that, Phil. Home Alone 2 is going to look like a fucking Oscar winner.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not going to. That's not going to happen, unfortunately.
So at Christmas is Home Alone 2 completely off the menu?
Yeah, I think we've watched it as a family, but it wasn't definitely my choice. No. I think my kid has watched it and probably quite enjoyed it. But yeah, it wouldn't be one that I would put on.
I think you're right. I think if you watch it as a child or a young person, and in a time when nothing can be bad, I think we all have that film when we realise films can be bad. Home Alone was still in that era, was like, no, this is still brilliant. This is...
Yes.
And I remember buying it on a set in Woolworths, and it had the VHS, and it had a woolly hat. And I've still got the Home Alone 2 woolly hat.
Have you?
Yeah. I don't think it barely fits my head anymore, obviously, but I still try and get it in. So
that's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
I like that. But you're right, though. I respect you that you've picked it. And when you mentioned it, I was like, okay, here we go. Get ready to have my heart broken again.
Sorry to smash your heart, Dave. I apologise, but I'm here to fire truth bombs.
No, I know. I've had a lot of them with Rich over the years, telling me I was wrong about certain things. So
not wrong, just not right. That's all.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like as a kid, it's about a kid who gets the run of New York with infinite money, infinite room service and ice cream, toy shops, cartoon violence. Like, of course you're going to love it.
Yeah.
So, you could argue that for its audience, it was absolutely perfect. And the box office would reflect that.
Yeah.
But they'd all be wrong. All of those people.
And what I love is that what's so good about film and cinema is that someone's like worst film can be someone else's best film kind of thing. So I love that. What sequel seemed like a bad idea, but you ended up liking?
Oh my gosh.
So you kind of dragged in it, but then you came out afterwards saying, oh, that wasn't bad.
Oh.
So a lot of people pick like Fast and Furious 5 or, something in there where you think that, a franchise is done and then they come up with a cracker, like Mission Impossible Fallout kind of thing. That kind of comes up, yeah.
Prey, we've mentioned it already, but
Prey's a good shout.
I didn't really see Prey being as good as it was.
I don't think anyone did.
I thought that franchise did feel like they tried everything and they'd done what they could and they'd run out of road.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Dan Trachtenberg before it came out about it, and the way he was talking about it, I was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. It's really cool, the idea of having having this super tech alien but dealing with people that have no real recourse to weapons, and they have to use their sort of ingenuity and their sort of knowledge of the land, and to use the Comanche kind of traditions to defend themselves, and having such a great heroine character. So yeah, I think like the boldness to take that franchise and put it in a completely different timeline, which didn't really make any sense at the time. I was just sitting there going, "What? How's that going to work?" Like it's got all of these kind of incredible high tech weaponry, and how are they going to beat it? But then you watch and you're like, "Oh, that makes perfect sense."
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to finish this podcast and think of about 7 others. Because there are loads, I'm sure, where you're like, okay, that just felt played out, but you found something fresh. But yeah, I think one of the nice things about the job is like trying not to prejudge films.
Yeah.
And then not necessarily having the highest expectations, but going in and going, oh shoot, that's actually really fantastic. I think Mad Max Fury Road was probably an example of that.
Yes.
I didn't see that film being. I mean, I thought it'd be fine, but when that first trailer landed, and then it was just like, just stop the clock. Really, it was like, wow, this looks like something. And then watching it, you're like, okay, wow, this is this is proper.
Yeah.
So that I don't think I had low expectations, but it certainly exceeded any expectations I had.
I remember watching that first Fury Road trailer and thinking, well, that's all the best bits. They can't do that for a whole film, kind of thing. And then you watch the whole film and think, fucking hell, they did that for the whole film. That's great.
Yeah, not the best bits, just a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best thing about cinema for me. That's the ultimate thing of going into a movie that I think I'm convinced I'm not going to like, and then coming out going, oh, I liked that. I enjoyed that. I do that with horror movies. It seems quite a lot. Like I never think I'm going to enjoy a horror movie. And then I come out of it going, oh, that was good. I enjoyed that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've also seen Insidious, Red Door. But yeah.
An Exorcist Believer.
An Exorcist Believer, which is bad. But yeah. I like how they take you by surprise.
The big one, I think, for us is Puss in Boots, The Last Wish.
Oh, yeah. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. I thought that was going to be an irrelevance at best. And actually came out of that going, I started to question my own mortality.
I cried.
Like, what's going on?
It broke me. I thought that was a great film. But I think Prey's a really good example of that, of a franchise you thought, like you said, they've tried it. They've thrown everything at that franchise, like kitchen sink and all. And they even brought back Shane Black to try and direct one and write one. And then that was just, I'm not sure what still went wrong with that one, to be honest. It's an absolute mess. I think, is it one they just called Predators? The Adrian Brody one?
Mm-hmm.
That's got some good ideas in it. I like that, how the Predators pick up random people and then drop them on a training planet. I think that's good. But Prey is an excellent. So when you discussed with him, did you just just nodding along politely going, yeah, sure, but it's another Predator film?
Yeah, I was just trying not to pull a face going, yeah, this will be, come on, what? No way. No, I mean, obviously I was, but it just didn't seem, he sold the film brilliantly and explained it brilliantly. There was no problem from his side. It was just maybe it was a once bitten, twice shy type of deal with that franchise, where I was just like, okay, we've seen some real dross. You're gonna have your work cut out to really kind of reinvigorate it. But God, fair play to him. He did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. Did you get to go to? Was there a press screening of that? Because I would love to have seen it on the big screen. Because for us, they just suddenly dropped it on Disney, and we were like,
I know. We all with a lot of grumbling. It's probably putting it strongly, but there was a lot of chat, sort of, because I think most film critics want to see films on the big screen, want everyone to see films on the big screen, want people to have the opportunity to see it on the big screen. So yeah, from time to time I'll complain about the fact that didn't get more of a wide release. It would be nice if we could, I just dream to do like a Time Out screening series where we can show films like that and Annihilation and some others that people don't often get to see it on the big screen. But certainly Prey felt like a film that was made for the big screen. Like it's got big landscapes and it's got a real kind of outdoorsy, like a tough shoot.
Yeah.
Feels like a real widescreen experience. And the other thing about Predator films is that they really, they use the frame. Like you're looking, because it's got a cloaking device, you're always being invited to like scour the frame for signs of you're very active in kind of engaging with the frame of the film. So having it in widescreen on a big screen, the filmmaker's got much more opportunity to play with that. Like in the first film where you're never quite sure where this creature is, but they give you little hints.
Yeah. Do you feel that way about Axel F being not seen on the big screen, or?
No, not really.
That would go into the series.
No, to directly contradict myself. Some films deserve to be on the small screen. Look, to be honest with you, I've only seen a bit of. I don't know where I'm going to show up on the Netflix algorithm, but I've only seen a bit of it.
Oh, okay.
It's not a film that my brother had seen it, and he mentioned that it was quite a sort of, it wasn't doing what the first film did. It lost a lot of its fun and its I don't know if that's fair or not.
It has its moments, I would say.
It's not groundbreaking, but I had fun. I thought it was fine. Yeah.
It was fine for sitting at home on a Friday night watching, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
But no, it's not Prey.
Oh, how do you feel about the future of the Predators? Because he's doing another one, isn't he?
So yeah, good. I feel really good about it. Can't
Badlands,
wait.
Outlands?
I don't know much about what the next plan is yet. But whatever it is, I'm sold, pre-sold.
Would you like to see that kind of Prey idea? So historical Predators on a pirate ship or something crazy.
That wasn't one of the ideas, was it?
I love that. For some reason.
Pirate, because that's the pirate in Predator 2, isn't it? Where Danny Glover's character gets given the flintlock, and it's got the pirate's name on it, and that was going to be the idea for a sort of first historical Predator film. Yeah, I mean, without it becoming totally formulaic.
Yes, that's the problem.
Definitely. Yeah, you don't want it to, you don't want it to be sort of, through the ages. But there's definitely, it feels like there's more scope for more Predator films. Because the idea is really transferable and fun.
Yeah.
And, it can be scary, can be gung-ho, can have it's got scope for like the last one to have kind of quite sort of perceptive character development and beats and stuff. So it can do lots of different things. I think it's a fun action franchise when it's done right, but it's not often been done right. So yeah. Anyway, Dan Trachtenberg's earned the right to do another one for sure.
What is your dream sequel?
My dream sequel. Well, I was watching last night, Edge of Tomorrow, and I was thinking that would be a good shout because I think it's fantastic. There is talk of a sequel for that film. Love that film, and just wanted to say that it isn't the film that I'm picked, so don't worry. But
that's all right.
Just sort of get that in there. But the one that I've gone for is Master and Commander, which is the ultimate sort of centrist dad choice. I'm aware. Any kind of man of a certain age has a weird relationship with Master and Commander, it seems. Or, maybe not all men of a certain age, but certainly a bunch, judging by my Twitter feed. And I watched it over the weekend again. And interestingly, it's just been announced that it's getting a screening at the Venice Film Festival this year.
Is it?
They pick a few they pick a few archive sort of films from the archive to do revival screenings of at festivals. Cannes does it. Venice is doing it. Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World is going to be playing. Yeah, I imagine maybe Peter Weir will be there.
That'd be amazing. He's retired now, hasn't he?
I think he has. Yeah, I think he has. But what a CV! What a CV! What a director! I mean, he wasn't the most prolific director out there, but he made so many classics. Picnic at Hanging Rock, Gallipoli, Year of Living Dangerously, Witness, Dead Poets Society. I'm just reading them off. The Truman Show, Master and Commander, The Way Back, his last film. I just like an extraordinary hit rate, an incredible, such an sort of important Australian filmmaker. And he came in for a web chat, I think, for The Way Back when I was at Empire. And we were asking him about, would you ever do a sequel for Master and Commander? Which I know he got asked a lot. But the way he talked about that film was it's sort of it's a spirit breaking effort to make a movie like this.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. Just so hard, so hard. There's this long history of Hollywood movies made at sea or near the sea, and they're all excruciating. They just from Waterworld to Mutiny on the Bounty, and they've all got the most harrowing backstories. And I think this one was not because there was maybe two personality clashes, but just how difficult it is to take a boat out and stuff, and then have a massive squall coming through. You don't have any control. Just incredibly difficult. So that's probably why they haven't. They also didn't make very much money. So that's why there hasn't been a sequel. But it's a shame. I would love there to have been more than one of these Patrick O'Brien adaptations.
Yeah, I imagine it cost a lot of money to make. I don't imagine it was a cheap movie to put together.
No. They filmed it in I think Baja in Mexico in the I don't know if it was the same place Titanic was filmed, in the sort of the ocean tank.
I think you're right, yeah.
The studio there. And then at sea as well. They had you can visit the actual boat. It's at the San Diego Maritime Museum.
Wow.
it was called HMS Rose, and it had been built in 1970 as a replica of this 18th century
Yeah.
frigate. And then 20th Century Fox, I think, sold it back to the museum on the basis that they could borrow it again if they wanted to make further movies. Yeah, so it's there if you want to. If you're feeling nostalgic and you're in the sort of Southern California district, you can go and have a go. I think Russell Crowe took his band to play a gig there a few years ago as well. Yeah. So anyway, but I don't know if people don't know, people haven't seen it. It's on Disney Plus, and it's one of the 20 novels that Patrick O'Brian wrote about the Royal Navy and the kind of Napoleonic era.
Yeah.
There's plenty of source material for them to make a sequel, wasn't there? There's kind of
Tons, yeah.
Yeah, loads of books. What do you think your sequel would be? What do you think your dream?
Have you read the
what
books?
story would they tell?
Yeah, I'm just gonna bluff this question out.
That's what we do.
I don't have any
We'll
idea.
workshop it.
What about the one where they fight Boney in the high seas? I don't know. I haven't read any of the books, I'll be honest. But it's just knowing that there's this kind of like, whenever you go to like Waterstones or your bookshop, there's the Patrick O'Brian section is enormous. So there was lots of these Jack Aubrey, the Russell Crowe character, Captain Jack, Jack Aubrey, and his relationship with
Bettany.
Yeah, Paul Bettany's Stephen Maturin, the sort of not naturist. He spent the whole movie in the nude. Naturalist and the ship's doctor. There's a lot more where that came from. I haven't read them, so I can't give you the exact chapter and verse on it. But it was a time of kind of nautical discovery and war and trade, and there's lots of there would have been lots of things that they could have done, lots of stories they could have told. It could have been back in Britain on dry land a bit more. Might have even introduced more female characters, just to be really daring.
What?
A female character?
I think
right?
There's one female character and
on the ship.
doesn't speak. I think all she does is smile at Russell Crowe.
There's a lot of hot eye contact, but she doesn't get any lines.
No.
So the difficulty of the shoot and how hard it was to make is there on the screen. It just looks real.
It looks excellent.
When they go around the Cape Horn.
Yeah,
fantastic. I kind of love it. We've talked about Predator. It is a bit like a ghost story, isn't it? Like there's this French ship out there, and you never really see it. You never really. They're kind of being stalked. They're being stalked by this ghost. They call it the Phantom, don't they? The Acheron. And so it kind of plays like a horror movie in a way. There's this menace that's coming, that keeps popping up and doing jump scares on them, and they keep escaping. And it's just a great backdrop to all of the kind of intrigue and character stuff that happens on the boat, and how the study of leadership in Rockcroft's captain and his relationship with this guy that he is a very different framework for seeing the world than Paul Bettany's character, and yet they kind of eat together and then they play music together, and that's their kind of communion. And then you have this, can't remember the name of the actor, but this kind of midshipman who becomes sort of jinxed and the crew turn against him, which is quite a moving kind of subplot.
Oh my god,
film. It's really interesting. I would recommend a book I'm reading at the moment called The Wager by David Gran, which Scorsese's been kind of connected with adapting. He's a guy that wrote The Killers of the Flower Moon and The Lost City of Zed, so he's got some previous when it comes to his book. So it's a history of a ship, that made that same journey and kind of got shipwrecked, and there was a mutiny, and it all kind of went to. It's an amazing story, but just having read that and then watched Master and Commander again, it's really factually kind of nailed down. The world of the ship is very specific and very well done. And Russell Crowe, man, what a movie star he was at that time.
He really was.
He went from LA Confidential to The Insider to Gladiator to A Beautiful Mind to Master and Commander in the space of 6 years.
It's a good run, though.
What a run. But so much charisma and so much hair in the film as well.
There is a point where I kind of feel like the movie pivots a little, where I thought it's going the way of Captain Jack's madness, essentially, like his determination to catch this French ship is going to cause the destruction of him and his crew. And it's going to have those horror movie beats, like you said, like does this French ship even exist? Is it in his mind? You know, are they chasing a white whale kind of thing? But I sort of like the way that he steps back from that. You know, his friend is injured. He decides not to chase this ship anymore and to land and to get his friend help. And actually that's what then helps him find the ship and destroy it. You know, it's kind of that step back from that kind of madness is, you know, I really like how it does that.
Yeah, I do too. I think weirdly the Wager, the book I was just talking about, it's the same thing, and yet they do get shipwrecked. Like the captain, you kind of have to go and keep pushing on and on and on, you know, to break through to the other side of the, you know, to get round Cape Horn, which is the, you know, the roaring 40s and these ridiculous seas. And the crew are all like, this is mad, we shouldn't do this. And then the superstition kicks in, and, you know, the scrutiny on his leadership is so intense, and yet he's like, he has to have that kind of mad conviction, otherwise none of it would work. So it's a really interesting kind of character study of this guy, and you can tell that he's probably stricken with doubt, but he's not able to let on to anyone except maybe to a degree to Paul Bettany's character. And like you say, the reveal at the end where they go to the Galapagos and Bettany goes off on this, like, you know, Attenborough-esque kind of jaunt to find his samples, and then he's the one that sees the Acheron kind of in the bay. And it's such a clever kind of way of turning the tables in the whole movie, and then him having to leave all of his poor creatures behind and like scurry back to the ship. Recovered from his wound very quick. Particularly, I noticed in this viewing.
Yeah. Are you one of the
in like 20 minutes
few people in 2003 to watch it? Because it seems just to, I know in the Oscars it got overcrowded and over Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, basically sweeps that year. And I think they were kind of released quite similar times. One maybe the end of November and beginning of December for Lord of the Rings. Do you feel like it got released at the wrong time for no one to really, because it has, over the years, it's got more popular, I would say. People have found it and started to really respect it more.
Yeah. Taika Waititi describes it as his favourite romance. I mean, obviously a bit tongue-in-cheek, but yeah, something in that. Look, it got 10 Oscar nominations and it won 2 Oscars.
Pretty good.
So it wasn't like it was, but it just didn't translate at the box office in the same way. And maybe because it does have a slightly dadcore esoteric appeal, you know, maybe it really wasn't, because it didn't have, like, you know, a traditional romance, or it didn't have a lot of things that was going to broaden it out to a, you know, what you call a 4-quadrant audience. It felt a bit like a niche sort of art housey proposition, whereas actually it's a really spectacular, you know, it's a spectacular action movie. I think the battle scenes are extraordinary, completely extraordinary. But because of the nature of the journey that they're on, like, everything feels like a battle all the time. Like them battling the weather as much as the French, and battling their superstitions and battling each other. Yeah, maybe it was a hard sell for marketing. I can't really speak to that because I'm not really sure quite what happened at the box office. I mean, obviously, Lord of the Rings, not wildly dissimilar in terms of like some of those themes, but just maybe an easier sell. But don't know. I honestly, I don't know. Yeah.
Me and Dave, we were in first year of university, so we were freshers when this came out, and I don't remember it being a thing at all. Like, we were film students, and like not even touching. I think it was just Lord of the Rings was just the thing. Like, it just felt like that was the only thing that came out at that time.
Yeah, that tallies with my memory. That was the event of you know, those years. Those the three Lord of the Rings movies were the ones that you were really excited about and looked forward to. But yeah, I think its rep has grown. I mean, you know, the fact that it's screening at Venice is a really good example of how much like they don't screen just anything at those sorts of festivals as a kind of restoration or as a revival. So it kind of just shows how highly thought of it is. But like Last Crusade, I think it is a really like immaculate piece of filmmaking. It's really difficult to watch it and think, well, that doesn't really. I was reading some of the reviews that it got all the time. Some of the people were a bit sniffy about the script, but I'm like, the script just feels incredible. Like it feels very authentic. The language is quite. The cadence of the language is quite specific to that time frame, to a point where you've got literally no idea if they're just making it up as they go along, because it's all this kind of, the way Jack Aubrey talks about the ship and his love for the ship. When somebody says, "Oh, this ship's a bit old and crap," but the French have got like this new sort of 4x4, and they're going to just do us because theirs is like fresh from the showroom and ours is a piece of shit, and he's just clearly like really hurt, and he's like, and there's a big cannonball hole in the side of his cabin, but he's like strokes it lovingly, and he's clearly like, oh, the ship can still do X, Y, and Z, and everyone's obviously thinking, no, we're so screwed. But I don't know, I feel like the storytelling and the character work is so immaculate that you get to the end of the film and you're like, oh, that character who in another film wouldn't be even registered, like I get a sense of who that person is. The David Threlfall character, for instance, who's or the I can't remember the name of the actor, but the officer who's just negative about literally everything. He's like, oh, we shouldn't do that because that's going to be a disaster the whole way through the film. And nobody says to him, look, shut up, you're being really negative, go see HR. They're just like, they let him. So there's dynamics.
I mean, the chemistry between Bettany and Russell Crowe is off the chart hot.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. They'd worked together on Beautiful Mind, obviously, but they're so good. But, James Darcy as well, who I think is an underheralded actor as a whole. Like he's a really important part of it.
The
young kids are great,
literally at the end of the film, it sets up the sequel if you wanted to go that way.
Doesn't it?
Darcy's got his own boat. The French captain's lied that he's died. He's swapped uniform with the medic, and then they set off, and you think, yes, come on, I'd watch another 2.5 hours of this, because you were saying earlier that I think they only shot like 10 days at sea, didn't they? If you told me they filmed the whole thing on the boat, I wouldn't have been surprised, because it feels so lived in and stuff like that. You're also saying, you keep saying it's like a dad's film. This is my dad's pick for this podcast. Every time I've interviewed someone, he's like, have they picked Master Commander yet? I was like, not yet, Dad.
Tell your dad to give your dad my number and we'll
He's got all the books. He's read them all. So he keeps saying, when's the next one coming out of this film? It's like, Dad, I think might have missed the chance of another Master and Commander. Maybe a remake, maybe a redo. What do you think of that?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe we could call that Tom Hanks' Apple film Greyhound. Maybe we can just call that sort of a spiritual
I like that film.
Or something. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, but again, we're talking about effects. The effects in that film so much worse than in this one, because, in those days they were trying to do it for real, using, gimbals and ocean, pools and all the rest of it. But they were doing their best to like make it as authentic and real as possible. And you can feel that in a film. And it really sells it to you. I should have done a phone a friend with your dad when you asked me which books they could have adapted.
Well, I know that this one's the first 3, apparently. So they will probably neck and pick the next 3 to do the next one. But
I'm surprised. Just going back to what you're saying about the script, like I'm surprised that's a point that people criticise, because I thought the script and the plot is really intricate. Like actually, there's kind of like you say, like there's a lot of characters. You feel like you get to know most of them. Yeah. There is that kind of like feeling that you understand this ensemble, and that kind of foreshadowing of the little kid giving Paul Bettany the bug to say, I know you didn't get to get your animals, but here's your little beetle. This could be your beetle and you can name it. And then the reason him seeing the French ship is because the beetle lands on his hand and he's looking at the beetle and he looks past it and there's the ship. That kind of, it's so nice. It's so
and the stick insect idea.
Tight. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The little boy in this, like, I don't know what the actor's name is, but he's brilliant. Like, I'm really kind of, on board with him. He's amazing.
There must be one of these books, an old man story. Surely we can get Russell Crowe and Bettany back together now, and they're still somewhere in the oceans sailing along.
Look, is you what's the Jerome K. Jerome story? 3 Men in a Boat or something, just paddling down the Thames.
Yeah.
just reminiscing. I'd watch that. I would totally watch that. That would be super fun.
Telling stories.
But yeah, I look, if I watched that film 100 times, I don't think the script would be one of the things I would pick out as being a problem. The script feels absolutely, it feels excellent to me.
I love the fact you never see the French, like until the last 10 minutes, really. Like you said, are they real? Are they the Phantom? I think it's a superb film. When you mentioned it, I was like, finally, yes. Couldn't wait to watch it.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the time I was like, I've seen that film, I don't have to watch it. But with Master and Commander, I was like, I'm watching that one again. I made Tiff watch it, my wife, because she had never seen it. And I think she liked it by the end. She couldn't watch some of the scenes when they're cutting her arms off or whatever.
I found that
taking
hard,
the bullet out and stuff like that. Raise the rib cage. I was like,
oh yeah, that's hard watching. It's hard watching.
But it feels so. It feels so good.
There.
Yeah, so gritty. Thank you for picking it.
No, that's a pleasure.
Those were Phil De Semlyen's Unequal Sequels. I can't believe the season's over. And I can't believe we ended it with such a cracking episode.
So many good picks.
So many good picks.
Good sequels. Good sequels for all of them, Rich.
I would say even his worst sequel is someone's best sequel.
This guy. So Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as his best. I mean, It's a great your sequel.
Absolutely.
Why do I keep calling them singles?
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
I'm having
Hard
a mare.
day.
Yeah, I think it's my favourite Indiana Jones film. I love The Last Crusade. I love Sean Connery. I love Harrison Ford. I think it plays the best out of all the films, and it's a great one. And I like it that he picked it, and Helen O'Hara picked it as our first episode, and now we've ended season 6 on it. It just feels right.
Danny Wallace picked it too.
These are all well, smart, creative, amazing people.
Absolutely.
Worst.
Interesting for worst, right? So worst is Home Alone 2, which I know you love.
I love Home Alone 2. So much joy and happiness comes from that film for me. And when he sent that his pick, I was heartbroken because I never thought someone would put Home Alone 2 in worst sequel.
Were you as heartbroken as when Tom Davis picked Back to the Future 2?
Yeah, I think I was. Because, I was hoping at least someone would pick Home Alone 2 in the best sequel before we talk about it in the worst sequel. And that didn't happen. And you know what? Everything he says is probably right about that film. But it makes me laugh so much. And Tim Curry's so good in it. Like the bit when the mother slaps him in the face and he has to stop himself crying and be like, oh, do wrap up. It's awfully cold out there. It's great. And it's not the worst sequel ever, is it, Phil? But
it's Phil's worst sequel ever. That's the thing. It's his worst sequel. And everything you said about it, I think is probably true. It is a retread of the first one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, and maybe it's like not quite as good. But you're right, Tim Curry is great.
Yes, it is great. But dream sequel. Finally. Master and Commander, Far Side of the Earth or World or whatever it's called, the full-length title. Master and Commander is a film I've been waiting for someone to pick for a long time on this film. And I've been wanting to watch it for a long time. And I've been putting it off like, no, I'm not going to watch it until someone picks it. And then someone picked it and I got to watch it again. It is a brilliant made movie. And Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany are so good in it. It's such a good film. And how there was no sequel for it after that. There's so many books to pick from and so many stories to pick from, I think, that...
Yeah.
It must have been an absolute bitch to make. It must have been horrible to make, or money-wise must have gone wrong somewhere. I mean, you look at that film, you can see where the money was spent, to be honest. It's one of those films.
Yeah, I think so. And I think any movie that's shot on water is automatically horrible to make, right?
Yes, I think so.
So I don't imagine anyone had much fun making it.
I know they had 10 days out at sea, which must have been horrible, but the rest of the shoot is on like the big Titanic stage, which is also pretty rough to film in, I think.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I get it, but I know that Russell Crowe really loved that film. So even with his star power at that point, they didn't get another one going. Is it's a surprise, but thankfully someone's picked on this podcast. And yeah, my dad's going to be really happy now because this was the one he wanted to hear and someone to pick. So there you go, Dad. Someone's done it finally.
Someone's done it. And yeah, I think it'll come up again, you know. I reckon someone else is going to pick it too.
Sensible people will pick it.
Is it Far Side of the World? Master and Commander Far Side of the World? Is
that sounds more. Yeah.
Something like that?
Sounds.
Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully. It even sounds like it's got another one coming, you know?
It does, doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean? Like, the title sounds like
it's
got
a colon or whatever it was. It was, It's crazy. But thank you to Phil for helping us wrap up season 6. Great picks, great film journalist. I listened to Phil when he used to be on Empire with Chris Helen, and that he left a few years ago, since 2017 actually now. And he became the global film editor at Time Out magazine, which if you travel a lot around London or whatever, it's a big thing for you in the magazine, or you can check it online. He's a great guy, knows his shit very much, brilliant writer.
Yeah, one of those people we've had on our list for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, when we first thought about the podcast and we drew up our lists of people to get on, Phil was one of those. And it's taken us, six series to get him on. So, you know, we are getting there. And there's still people on that list. So.
There's still a lot of people on that list that we have to badger and get on. And
we do, yeah.
Yeah. But Phil was on there and Phil said yes. And then he came on and it was brilliant. And his picks are brilliant for us personally as a podcast because they're not always run of the numbers kind of thing. So when someone picks Home Alone 2 as a worst, you think there's lots to talk about there. And when someone picks Master and Command, you're like, there's lots to talk about there. I think that's one of the longest Dream sequel sections we've had for a while, which is great. But thanks, Phil, for coming on. Go check him out. Go check out Time Out magazine. Go check out all his work. He's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing my job for me there.
Oh.
But yeah, go for it. Go and check that out. And also, while you're doing that, obviously this is the end of season 6. So it's 12 episodes for you to go back and check out on season 6. But I would also recommend you going back, if you haven't, if you just tune in for this one, go back and listen to all our other interview episodes. There are loads of them. We've had some brilliant guests on, absolutely incredible people as guests on this podcast. So please go back and listen, give those a listen. You will not regret it. If you want to hear a little bit more from Phil, then you can join us on anotherslice.com/unequal sequel, where we talked to him a little bit about film journalism, but you could also hear me and Dave ramble on a little bit about the sequel sessions and how those have gone. So join us over there on anotherslice.com/unequal sequel. It's $2.99 a month to join the subscription service. And you get that little extra bit on all these sequel sessions of all our episodes. You also get Disenfranchised and Box Set Mentality. So another couple of podcasts for you over there too. Make sure you join us on social medias. So we're on all the social media. Just type in Unequal Sequel wherever you do your social mediaing, and we'll pop up. Send us a message. Let us know what you thought about Phil's picks. We will read out any comments in the end of month roundup. You can also send us an email if you don't do social media. That's unequalsequel@hotmail.com. While you're there, we really want to get to 200 ratings on Apple Podcasts because we really want to become certified Rotten Tomatoes critics. We think that would be hilarious. Because we also think that our ratings films out of 7 will break their system. So please get on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. And once we get to 200, we will do something for everyone who's listening. You know, there will be something. We'll run some sort of competition for everyone once we get to 200. So please do that. It will really help us. And we just think it'll be fun.
It will be fun. Next week will be some of the best bits of season 6.
Woohoo!
So this is the end of season 6, but that will be official the end of season 6.
Yes.
And that's where me and Rich will get emotional about what we've been through for the last 3 months. So tune into that. Yikes, because it is always an absolute graft to get these out. So thank you everyone for listens and makes the podcast possible. We really appreciate that. You make it worth doing. So thank you very much. I've got nothing else to say. So it's a goodbye from me. Bye-bye. And a goodbye from him.
Bye.
See you on the next one. Sequels this one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Season 6, man.
Season 6 done. Season 7 next.
Yeah, I mean, literally straight into recording season 7, right?
We go again.
Yeah, no breaks, straight in.
No, well, not straight in.
No, straight into recording.
There we go.
And then kind of October time for everyone listening, right?
Yes. Fingers crossed, that's the plan. We're going to get it. This is a 2-season year. We promised it. It's going to happen. Even if it's just me and Rich making voices up for 12 episodes. Hello, my name is Kevin. Like that. That would be like the next series.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, here we go. I've been told to make a trailer, and they said to make it impactful and memorable. So here we go. My name is Dave Curtis, and I will guarantee you probably haven't heard of me, but I host a podcast called Unequal Sequel, and I love movies. Well, this is a new podcast. If you can do something, it's better to do something impossible, because it feels good. Well, I've set myself a mission impossible. You'll see why that's clever in a minute. You may not know it, but Tom Cruise sends loads of people a cake at Christmas. I have set myself a quest to get Tom Cruise to send me that cake. How, you're asking? How, Dave? How is that going to happen? Well, you have to listen to the podcast and find out. That's literally what the podcast is about. It's about Tom Cruise, his career, and me getting the cake from Tom Cruise. Sounds fun, doesn't it? How about you listen along? It's called The Great Tom Cruise Cake Quest. And it will be available wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know about you, but I think I nailed that.